Number 10. The Koroway Tribe. There are some societies out there so remote, so closed off from the rest of the public that very few people will dare to make contact with them. Whether it's vast jungles, steep mountain cliffsides, or harsh deserts, some people manage to live in extremely inhospitable locations. In this case, the Koroway tribe manages to live on the island of Papua on the Indonesian side, where dense rainforests have blocked off other societies. This has made their customs and culture quite unique for anthropologists. They build massive treehouse structures to protect themselves from the creepy crawlers on the ground. They rarely have contact with each other, let alone the outside world. This society has been for the most part okay with people trying to study their culture, but they really don't like wearing pants. In fact, they even enjoy pulling pranks on reporters who come to try to study their people, joking about things such as cannibalism and believing in an earthquake that will strike if they put on clothes. But they're just making this stuff up to mess with them. Instead of really being dangerous, they just pretend to be and laugh at you later on for believing them. But certainly not all the societies on this list are going to be that generous. Number 9. The Inuits. Although they might have made more contact with the rest of the world, in the past couple of centuries, the Arctic indigenous people can be quite isolated geographically speaking. Living on harsh landmasses such as Greenland, Alaska, and northern Quebec, some societies here can only be reached by helicopter or airplanes. And even then, the journey could still be quite difficult due to the harsh snowy weather. They managed to avoid contact from Europeans for the most part, but there is some theory that they might have actually traded with Norse settlers when the Vikings arrived in Greenland. The first confirmed contact made from the outside world came with the Basque people who were searching for whale oil to harvest. Tensions grew between Europeans and the Inuits when their demands for manufactured European goods weren't met. Without speaking similar languages by a long shot, they all sort of remained suspicious of each other and therefore isolated. Traditionally, they've managed to survive off meat by hunting fish, whales, caribou, reindeer, etc. But in recent years, they've noticed a little bit more assimilation. Products from the southern provinces such as milk can receive high, ridiculous prices. Number 8. Brazilian tribes. The indigenous tribes of Brazil somehow are able to seek refuge inside the Amazon rainforests of Brazil. The majority of these tribes are concentrated towards the border with Colombia, Venezuela, and Peru, and they've inhabited the country before European settlers even arrived. The word Indios was designated by the Portuguese, and it's still officially their name, even though it might not be politically correct. It's a little bit hard to be a social justice warrior if you're living in the middle of the rainforest. These people are semi-nomadic who survive from hunting the wild animals of the Amazon. There's an estimation of roughly 67 different completely uncontacted tribes living in Brazil, making it the country with the most isolated societies. But just because they're isolated doesn't mean that they don't have serious firepower. One anthropologist claims to have seen a bow that was 12 feet tall that could fire massive spears long distances. Many people will try to avoid these tribes, and they're considered to be quite hostile towards Europeans. The only people that seem to make contact with these people are loggers in the Amazon rainforest. There was one reported case by BBC where the tribes actually tied up the logger and kept him captive. Number 7. Buddhist monks of Parotakseng. Also known as the Tiger's Nest. We mentioned this place earlier on in our Mysterious Places in Asia video, and the reason it's quite mysterious is because of the isolated society of Buddhist monks here. Located in the country of Bhutan is where you'll find this cliffside monastery. The photos we see here are about as close as people can make it when trying to visit this place. It's located about 3,000 feet above the Paro Valley at an elevation of 10,000 feet above sea level. The monastery covers sacred meditation caves and is an extremely spiritual place. This means that monks are living here with the intention of being isolated from the rest of the world. The elevation and 1,000 steps will keep tourists away from visiting this breathtaking structure. Much about this culture in Bhutan was completely left in the dark to Westerners until the beginning of the 19th century, when National Geographic published their first article about the country of Bhutan. It's believed that the monks live deep within the cave systems and are meditating. Although contact with them is extremely rare, they are said to be quite friendly to outsiders, and they really only leave in order to get supplies from time to time. Number 6. The Surma Tribe. Another isolated tribe that doesn't see the need for clothes, the Surma are located in the southern region of Sudan near the border with Ethiopia. There's about 12 indigenous tribes in this area of Sudan, which is almost entirely cut off from the outside world. It's sort of a tough area to get to for foreigners, considering the infrastructure here is quite poor, and the remote desolate mountains they live in don't necessarily make it easy. This culture is home to quite a few unique rituals, which include things such as stick fighting, which is said to help attract a wife, violence is embedded into their society, and these stick fights can often result in death. These intense battles can often involve about 20 people or more on each side, and it often draws a large crowd of spectators. They also don't tend to get along very well with the neighboring indigenous tribes. Their most notable features are the bottom lip piercings by the females of this group. The lip is extremely stretched out to the point where it can be disturbing. The process also involves the removal of 2 bottom teeth. This tribe is recently beginning to disperse due to their rival tribe gaining access to automatic weapons. Also, agriculture is beginning to fail for this society, and they will be spotted malnourished and searching for water. In case you thought women's rights were bad in Western countries, try living here. Women here aren't even allowed to voice their opinion, literally. All village decisions are made by men without interruption. Number 5. Faroe Islands. If you're really looking for an isolated place to come to, the Faroe Islands might be perfect for you. The Faroe Islands are located between Norway and Iceland, just north of Scotland. The estimated population of this self-governing archipelago is about 50,000, and it's also a part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Many of the homes you see here are quite isolated from the rest of the world, and they really haven't had to deal with anyone migrating to their country. Houses are constructed on rugged land, which isn't good for cultivating crops, making sheep and even whale meat a consistent source of food. Faroe Islands share many cultural differences from the rest of the world. Decided to originally inhabit this area, and then it was settled by the Vikings. Although they're technically ruled by Denmark, they pretty much do as they please. They speak another language called Faroese, which is similar to Icelandic, but Danish is enforced at school. Number 4. McMurdo Station, Antarctica. The people who are temporarily working at McMurdo Station in Antarctica basically form their own isolated society away from civilization. When people are talking about the Deep South, this is about as deep as it gets, and as far south. The population can reach about 1,200 people in summertime, but you better believe they're not sipping on Mai Tais and pina coladas down by the poolside in swimsuits. No, it's designed specifically as a research station, and there was even a nuclear power plant here. The coldest temperatures reach negative 59 degrees here during the month of July. The history of this location being used as a base can date back to 1902, where just a puny little hut was built by an explorer. Many strange things are researched here, and they feel as though the surface of this dry valley is quite similar to that of Mars. No one could permanently live here since it's just too cold, and you probably appreciate your simple life back at home after a couple days of living here. Unless you're just really into penguins, which is understandable. Number 3. Mengingo Island. Located in the middle of Lake Victoria in eastern Africa, this isolated community was actually claimed by both Kenya and Uganda in a territorial dispute. Just less than a square mile in area, a fishing community of about 131 people made this place home. It's home to a brothel, 4 pubs, a pharmacy, and some shanty houses. There's very little vegetation here, as you can tell from this photo, and the fishing boats you see scattered here bring in the main source of food. The lake is a key source of water for Africans, and controlling this island is important for economical reasons. In 2004, the Ugandan government came to this island, set up a tent, and a non-violent standoff took place. Uganda claimed that Kenya was fishing in their waters. They later backed down and said that the island was indeed Kenyan, but the waters around the island were mostly Ugandan. This essentially isolates the most densely populated island in Africa in sub-technicalities, and keeps them from heading further west. Number 2. ADX Florence. There's different reasons why some societies might become isolated, but this one is quite unique in many different ways. The people are normally unwilling to live here, since it's actually a supermax prison in the middle of the Colorado Rockies. This facility is considered to be the most isolated prison in the world, and it houses federal criminals on the inside. It was built with maximum security because the ones held here are considered to be a serious threat to society, and even the entire country. This one is a little bit isolated in a different sense. Although it's close to Colorado Springs, each inmate is pretty much put into solitary confinement to spend the rest of their sentence, which is normally life. Inmates will spend 23 hours a day locked up in their cell by themselves. They might get out for about an hour of human contact, which is normally the prison guard escorting them. The inmates are permitted only 5 visits per month on specific days by a maximum of 3 people at a time to keep them slightly sane. However, the majority of these visits for federal criminals are mainly by their attorneys and diplomats. And number 1, the Sentinelese. Surrounded by sapphire blue waters and beautiful coral beaches, North Sentinel Island is considered to not only be one of the most dangerous islands, but also one of the most isolated. There's a thick, dense rainforest inland, but also an isolated society who apparently didn't make their first contact with the outside world until the 1970s. The locals were extremely hostile to anyone attempting to make contact with them. When they eventually gave up on trying to communicate in person, the Indian government resorted to sending helicopters and planes to try to recover a body of a fisherman. The Sentinelese, who refused to be contacted with, actually shot arrows at the aircraft and obviously made the searchers not feel too welcome. To this day, it is illegal for anyone to visit this island. The main reason for this is because more than likely the tribe will harm anyone who comes here. This would result in the Indian government having to retaliate and possibly wipe off an entire isolated society, which never looks good for international relations.